The miracle that changed everything. What if I told you that sometimes the most powerful medicine doesn't come from a hospital, but from the heart of a child who has nothing left to lose? Picture this. You're a billionaire. Money's no object. Your son needs help, and you've got the resources to buy the best treatment on earth. Yet after countless specialists, experimental therapies, and trips to the world's most exclusive clinics, nothing works. Your child is still suffering, and you're running out of hope. Now imagine that the answer doesn't come from a fancy doctor in a white coat. It comes from an 8-year-old girl living rough on the streets. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? Well, that's exactly what happened to the Cole family. Let me take you back to that crisp October afternoon in the city center. The golden leaves were dancing in the breeze, but Richard Cole wasn't admiring the scenery. This wealthy businessman was walking across the plaza, pushing his 7-year-old son Daniel in a wheelchair, heading back to their car after yet another failed medical appointment. Daniel used to be like any other kid his age, running about, climbing trees, never sitting still for more than 5 minutes. But that all changed when a mysterious illness struck. One day he was perfectly healthy. The next, his legs just stopped working. The doctors called it unexplained neurological damage. Permanent, they said. Nothing more they could do. Richard refused to accept it. He flew Daniel to Switzerland's most prestigious neurological institute. They tried everything. Cutting-edge therapies, experimental treatments that cost more than most people's houses. When that didn't work, they headed to Boston, then Los Angeles, consulting with the world's leading specialists. The answer was always the same. I'm terribly sorry, but there's nothing more we can do. Each failed treatment drove another wedge between father and son. Richard poured himself into work, unable to face his own helplessness. Daniel retreated into silence, that spark of childhood joy slowly fading from his eyes. Their mansion felt more like a mausoleum, all marble and silence, where laughter had once echoed through the halls. So there they were, crossing the plaza after appointment number ... Well, Richard had lost count. His mind was already racing ahead to his next business meeting when a gentle voice broke through his thoughts.
Hello there.
Daniel's head turned. Standing just a few meters away was a little girl, maybe 8 years old, with beautiful dark skin and her hair woven into neat plaits. Her clothes told a story, a faded cream top under a pale blue waistcoat, jeans worn thin at the knees. No shoes. Her feet were dusty from walking the city streets. Richard's first instinct was to keep moving. Street children meant trouble, and his son was vulnerable enough already, but something made him pause. Daniel had actually lifted his head. He was looking at this girl with something Richard hadn't seen in months. Curiosity. I'm Maya, she said, stepping closer with the confidence of someone far older than her years. Fancy a game? Daniel glanced down at his chair, his voice barely a whisper. I can't play. I can't walk. Maya tilted her head, not with the pity adults usually showed, but with genuine puzzlement. You've got hands, haven't you? She extended her small palm towards him. Richard felt his protective instincts kick in. This was dangerous, a stranger approaching his vulnerable child, but something in Daniel's expression stopped him cold. His son was actually considering it. After months of refusing to engage with anyone, here he was, slowly reaching out his hand. Their fingers touched. Small, tentative, but real. Maya's face lit up like Christmas morning. Brilliant. Now we're playing. She began moving their joined hands in a peculiar rhythm, side to side, tapping knuckles, creating patterns only she seemed to understand. Just copy what I do, she instructed, with the authority of a playground general. Daniel tried to follow her movements. For the first time in ages, his mouth curved upward. Not quite a smile, but close enough to make Richard's heart skip. You're actually quite good at this, Maya laughed, speeding up the pattern. 2 claps, a fist bump, a twirl of the wrist. And then it happened. Daniel laughed. Not the polite chuckle he sometimes managed for doctors, but real, genuine laughter that bubbled up from somewhere deep inside. The sound hit Richard like a physical blow. He'd forgotten what his son's joy sounded like. Maya was laughing too now, leaning in conspiratorially. Bet you can't keep up with this one. Watch me, Daniel shot back, his voice stronger than it had been in months. He started copying her movements with increasing speed, actually competitive for the first time since his illness. Richard's breath caught in his throat. Without any prompting, Daniel was using his arms to propel his wheelchair forward, rolling closer to Maya under his own power. He hadn't voluntarily moved his chair in months. Maya leaned in and whispered something in Daniel's ear that Richard couldn't catch. But whatever she said made Daniel's eyes go wide. Then, to his father's absolute amazement, his son gripped the wheels and pushed himself the final few feet toward her. They clasped hands again, grinning at each other like old mates, who'd been separated for years rather than strangers who'd met minutes ago. Richard stood frozen, his chest tight with a mixture of gratitude and complete bewilderment. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew he couldn't interrupt this moment. Not yet. So he watched from a distance as his son came alive under the influence of a homeless girl who seemed to carry pure magic in her touch. But he couldn't stay a bystander forever. His feet finally moved, carrying him toward the two children and their inexplicable connection. His heart was hammering as he approached. Daniel started when he noticed him, but Richard held up a gentle hand. "It's all right," he said, his voice softer than usual. He knelt down to their eye level. Up close, Maya looked even smaller and more fragile. Her clothes were paper-thin, her cheeks smudged with city grime, but her eyes blazed with a vitality he hadn't seen in years. Not in Daniel, not in himself. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Richard asked. "Maya," she replied without hesitation, straightening her shoulders. "How old are you? 8? She said it like it was a badge of honor. "And where are your mom and dad?" Her gaze dropped to the pavement. "Haven't got any? Been managing on my own for a while now? It's not too bad, really." She shrugged as if discussing the weather. Daniel frowned. "That's not true. You told me you sleep outside sometimes." Maya gave him a playful nudge. "Don't go spilling all my secrets." But the truth was written in her eyes. The bone-deep weariness of someone who'd had to fight for every scrap of safety and warmth. Richard's throat constricted. "You've been living on the streets sometimes in hostels, but they're mental, crowded, and noisy. I prefer being outside anyway." She nodded toward Daniel. "Besides, I saw him looking proper sad, so I thought maybe he needed a mate to play with." "She's my friend, Dad," Daniel said simply. "She's different." The wind rustled through the plaza, creating a strange bubble of calm around their unlikely trio. Maya suddenly stood up and moved behind Daniel's wheelchair. "Right then," she said with determination. "Let's try something." She placed her small hands on the back of his chair, but instead of pushing, she leaned down to whisper in his ear again. "I'll be right here. Just give it a go." Daniel's hands found the wheels. His face scrunched in concentration. Slowly, shakily, he began to push forward. One revolution, then another, then another. "Daniel, ... double quotes," Richard breathed. But his son wasn't looking at him. His entire focus was on Maya, who clapped and cheered with every push forward. "So you're stronger than you think," she encouraged. They stopped a few meters away. Maya walked around to face him, crouching until their eyes were level. "Right," she said quietly. "Now stand up." Daniel blinked hard. I can't." "Of course you can. Just for a second. I'll catch you if you wobble." Richard stepped forward, panic flooding his system. "That's not possible. Let him try," Maya interrupted, her gaze unwavering. It wasn't defiance in her voice. It was absolute certainty. Daniel gripped the armrests. His arms shook, his face twisted with effort. And then, to Richard's complete and utter disbelief, his son's legs began to shift beneath him. Slowly, tremblingly, Daniel rose from his wheelchair. The entire plaza seemed to hold its breath. For 3 heartbeats that felt like an eternity, Daniel was standing. His knees wobbled like a newborn foal, but he was upright, alive, defying everything the doctors had told them. "Dad," Daniel grinned, his voice filled with wonder. "I'm doing it." Then his legs gave way, but Maya was there instantly, catching him and lowering him gently back into his chair. "Told you," she beamed. Richard dropped to his knees beside them, his voice cracking. "Daniel, I'm so incredibly proud of you." He turned to Maya, tears threatening to spill. "You did something that no one else could. Not the specialists, not the therapists, not anyone." Maya shrugged, suddenly shy. "I just believed he could do it." Richard looked between them, his son flushed with triumph and this barefoot girl who radiated fearlessness. In that moment, he made a decision that would change all their lives. "You're coming home with us," he said firmly. Maya's eyes went wide. "What? You're not sleeping rough tonight? Or any other night? If you'll let me help?" For the first time since they'd met, Maya was speechless. Daniel reached for her hand. "Please say yes. I want you to stay with us." Tears welled in Maya's eyes as she nodded. That evening, Richard's car pulled away from the plaza with 3 passengers instead of 2. In the back seat, Daniel and Maya sat side by side, whispering excitedly about all the games they'd play tomorrow. Richard watched them in the rearview mirror, his chest tight with an emotion he'd almost forgotten. Hope. For the first time in over a year, he felt something other than defeat coursing through his veins. As the city lights blurred past the windows, he realized that a homeless girl with absolutely nothing had just given him everything that mattered. Sometimes the most powerful miracles don't come from medicine or money. They come from the pure, unshakable belief of a child who refuses to see limitations where others see impossibility. If this story touched your heart, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more incredible emotional tales that'll restore your faith in the magic of human connection. Drop a comment and tell us where in the world you are watching from. We absolutely love hearing from our global family. Till next time, stay kind, stay hopeful, and keep believing in miracles.